While Scorpion and Maria take position against the approaching mammoth worm, Randy Random blesses us with one of my favorite quest opportunities. We detected an ancient Mechanitor complex. There's no time limit to this quest, it just involves exploring and raiding an abandoned robotics factory in search of the Mechanitor corpse hidden therein. If we can reach this corpse, we can extract its mech link from its brain and install it to, for example, Scorpion, thus granting him the ability to, well, make a friggin' robot army, to say the least. And to make things better, the base is within a day's ride of Lake Mountain. Now, with all that being said, don't expect us to go seeking that mech link anytime soon. We don't even have the research to construct most of these advanced components and builds necessary to make the things for the mech link. I don't know. Unless you really want me to go raid the mech link ahead of time, I don't know. Let me know. Anyway, we have a mammoth worm to kill. By the way, if you're still here and you've been keeping up with the tale of Scorpion, I just wanted to say thank you. And bonus points if you've been here since the beginning. I know the quality is all over the place in this series, and I'm occasionally experimental when it comes to some of my editing, so the fact that you're still here and sticking through it is just really cool to me. Again, thanks for being here. Anyway, that bullshit aside, the most eventful part of day 55 is Hay House accidentally shooting Maria twice while she was killing manhunting rabbits, in a situation that I could have handled better all around, but oh well. The only highlights of day 56 involves creating butcher tools for our butchering table to increase work speed and output, and the usual tribal thinking gathering session, whatever, the tribal research sessions. The next day, day 57, our lethal lovers Scorpion and Maria fight off a couple of pigskin raiders that crash in and outside of our mountain border. I also draft up some tents and teepees in hopes of turning our little shelter into an inn that visitors can reside in and pay us to stay in, thus leaving our own colonists camping outside. To be honest, I thought the tent and teepee aesthetic looked cool. Also, I completely forgot about the black hive that sent that mammoth worm after us, which was, luckily, thankfully, destroyed by some unknown third party. So I have Hay House at midnight of day 58 gather the remaining black hive jelly. In the morning hours of day 58, we rescue another escape pod survivor from bleeding out. Though this time we're gonna leave her locked away, lest we forget what happened with the last person we tried helping. Sure enough, the colonist we rescued mutates and turns into an abomination. However, while trying to figure out how to handle the situation, I realize it isn't actually trying to break out. It's just squirting blood everywhere. But aside from that, I kinda like her, and I think we'll keep her. Funny enough, while Maria guns down a man-hunting wolf, another drop pod containing, this time, a hostile raider crashes inside our mountain walls. It seems our place is just the go-to hotspot for when you want to crash land on this RimWorld. The survivor winds up being some 13-year-old belonging to a hostile Rough Outlander Union faction. Or he's another abomination. I guess we'll see. Also, this day's tribal research session winds up being almost entirely useless as far as EXP goes, so, after some consideration, perhaps now is the time that we begin to seek intelligence from elsewhere. With that in mind, we will now turn our attention to the strange signal that's been following Scorpion this entire time, and echo the signal back. During midnight of day 60, one RimWorld year since Scorpion crash landed on this planet, the monolith arrives. We will begin taking steps to secure the surrounding area of the monolith immediately. Despite the sudden eldritch feeling of impending doom, Maria attempts to feed our starving prisoner. Luckily, nothing happens. Maria will also extract whatever knowledge she can from the young lad after feeding him. While this happens, another pigskin raid occurs. Pigskins, by the way. To put it simply, they eat a lot and regenerate organs and can withstand some pretty serious damage, as you've probably noticed. I mean, they are just eating bullets. Shout out to Cherry for gunning down one of them while Scorpion is caught in melee. In the later hours, I decide to cut our raider prisoner loose. Things are only going to get more strange and dangerous around here, and there's a pretty substantial bonus for sending him back home, so there you go. That's one less mouth to feed, and if they want him back so bad, you could friggin' have him. I kinda wanted him to be an abomination, though, to be honest. In the morning after the arrival of the monolith and the 1-year crash landing anniversary of Scorpion, we finally unlock the ability to create primitive furniture. Not complex furniture, just basic furniture. An hour after midnight of day 62, a cargo pod containing a whole-ass shovel falls nearby, which grants bonuses to cultivation and mining. The perfect tool for our dear Phytokin, Cherry. I also decide to change our next research project towards crafting facilities for the time being. After we research this, we'll be able to create our own stoves, butcher tables, and art benches. I won't lie. These last several caravans that passed through here had pretty much nothing we wanted, or had wares that were too expensive. The latest caravan that arrives has made up for all that lost spending potential. What I really mean by that is, they are willing to buy all of our leftover pelts and furs, a ton of our rice, which we have more than enough of, all of our tainted apparel, and in exchange for all of this, we get some ritual masks, a ton of pemmican, a hen and a rooster, and finally a pig and a sow. We pretty much got ourselves a whole ass farm. We still don't have animal handling researched yet, so we will have to rely on a swift kick in the ass to get our animals into our preferred area, lest they go wild and wander out of the map, or we turn them into dinner. During the witching hours, before the caravan leaves, they leave us some spare throwing shards and an excellent quality flame bow. I won't lie, having fire on command in the form of a bow sounds just like the venom to scorpion sting that I've been looking for. Nothing of note happens on day 64, aside from our dear lady pig Cassidy getting pregnant. At midnight of day 65, our old friends the Sacrilege Hunters have arrived with stuff that's just way too expensive. We can only afford a single female goat from them, which we buy for the free milk production. Our new goat makes her way to the range after the customary smack on the ass that all other animals receive upon joining our colony. Early sunrise, then, we finally completed research for animal handling. So it turns out you don't have to punch your dog, you can just pet it. Now that we have animal handling unlocked, our master animal husbandrists, like Hay House, will begin training and interacting with our own animals. Hay House? Meet Gladstone. Once we begin to create kibble, perhaps Hay House will begin to train Gladstone into doing all sorts of helpful tasks, from defense to rescuing downed colonists. At least, that's what I hoped. The gods seemingly spite us by giving Gladstone the friggin' plague. And to make things worse, Gladstone is seemingly refusing to lie down in a medical spot to get treatment. And while he does have strong immunity, the plague is staying one step ahead of Gladstone. Looks like we'll have to bonk him on the head to get him to lie down. Or at least, that's what I thought. Gladstone promptly beats the ever-living hell out of Scorpion for his transgressions against the mighty Gladstone. So while trying to figure out what to do with our plague-infested gorilla, I remembered that our friends, the Sacrilege Hunters, are still visiting our territory, and they actually offered to buy Gladstone. So with that in mind, we trade our plague-infested gorilla for the male goat to complement our female goat. Hopefully Gladstone doesn't go all 28 days later on them. The goat's name is Couscous, by the way. Pretty much nothing of note happens on day 66. Just for the sake of mentioning it, 99% of the time that I cut out is spent building, cooking, growing, and waiting for something terrible to happen. It seems the time that I spent cultivating more advanced crops and plants like cotton and hay pays off, as we passively unlock the research that allows us to grow more advanced plants, fun ones included like smoke leaf. The other notable part of day 67 is that our hen Sophia just laid 2 fertilized eggs. I was ready to write off day 68 as non-eventful until a pack of man-hunting pedigreed raptors showed up. I love and hate these things. They're basically raptors that have been Jurassic Parked into existence, then genetically enhanced and eugenically bred for Glimmerworld breeding competitions. Then one day some asshole crashed on this RimWorld with a couple of these raptors on board, and you can imagine how quickly they rose to the upper echelons of the food chain. I have a natural fear of these things, for they have been complete game enders for early tribal runs, just like this one. I mean, look how fast they are. Thank goodness for guns. Okay, I'm done hyping up these rabid raptors. I'll be real, any decent gun will take them down. That being said, we'll remain inside our walls and keep them alive for now. They'll offer us free protection in the event of a raid. A raid that comes in the early hours of day 70. Keep in mind that what you're about to see, just wonder how it would have played out had one of them not had their shotgun. Even though this raptor is just eating slugs, this guy still gets mauled nearly to death. And I won't lie, this guy with the shotgun and the sombrero is no friggin' joke. As noon approaches, Cassidy gives birth to her new piglet, Humphrey. You can't see him because Cassidy gave birth behind a pine tree. Soon after, our chicks hatch from their eggs as well. In the afternoon, then, Maria becomes infected by sensory mechanites. These mechanites, in an attempt to enhance their host, increase Maria's overall motor control speed and efficiency by roughly 50%, though as a result, her sensitivity to pain has increased just as much. The world feels infinitely more alive, and she's faster and better for it, but the pain is that much more exquisite. The next couple days are almost entirely uneventful. As day 73 comes to an end and the gang is performing their research by fire, Scorpion is sent a vision of the monolith. Be patient, O Great One. I chose to interpret this completely meaningless eldritch calling as a call for blood. Luckily, there's a hostile pear farm within a day's ride of us. Blood for the monolith. Food for the belly of the faithful. I decided to send Scorpion and Hay House alongside Boa for this little expedition. Hay House believes in a certain raider ideology and has basically been living this entire time on the brink of mental breakdown because my boy has not raided in too damn long. Like, he just lives for raids. And funny enough, after we complete this raid, his depression basically vanishes and he winds up being one of our happiest cultists, if not for several days. 3 hours later, Scorpion and Hay House arrive at the farming camp. The camp itself is ran by two Neanderthals, which are basically xeno-humans that are made out of friggin' bricks, as you can see. Soon after, we secure the shipment of 300 Rite pairs and immediately make our way back home. Meanwhile, Royo, our trusty old wise woman, collapses from being a 70-year-old woman with food poisoning. And just like that, we have our food situation solved for, like, a day. Also, our hen, Sophia, just laid a clutch of 5 friggin' eggs. Rather ominously, Cassidy gives birth to her new piglets immediately after containment of the monolith is completed. Past couple days are entirely uneventful, though in the early hours of day 79, I have Cherry gather some anima seeds from an anima sprout that appeared nearby our monolith. A gift, perhaps. Also, meet Cajun, a wild cat that just wandered into Lake Mountain and called it home. Additionally, some very exotic tea-coffee hybrid drinks crash onto our territory, beside the old yet unopened ancient tomb that once nearly claimed Scorpion's life. All of these kind gestures from Randy Random and or the Monolith are starting to scare me. Maria passes Cajun on her way to grab the drinks, by the way. Just thought that was cool. Alright, enough waiting. During the witching hours of day 80, Scorpion investigates the monolith directly. As Scorpion lays his hands on the surface of the monolith, he's met with a distant hum emanating from within. The surface, though still, crawls like worms. Shapes appear in Scorpion's mind, and the monolith awakens. The revelation is made clear to Scorpion. This monolith is a doorway. Just as this is made clear, an eerie fog known as the Grey Pall settles over the territory. Accompanying this strange fog is a death-like stench that causes all of our colonists to have a -8 or so mood penalty. Speaking of anomalies, the first couple appear later on at 7 a.m. in the form of wild harbinger trees. Strange trees made of seemingly organic material that are growing into something. If we leave corpses around them, their growth will advance substantially. This is the Entity Codex, by the way. Shamblers and flesh beasts are already on the Codex thanks to our past ventures that led us to this point. Despite the strange, our colonists will continue their great work. I'm having him build a big old, tavern inn thing. I don't know, I thought it looked cool. During the afternoon of day 81, Maria is confronted by our first anomalous entity, a sight stealer. They're fast, clawed, and emit a psychic wave that makes them nearly invisible to the observing eye, at least until the time is ready for them to strike. Rather eerily, it stands out and stares at our lone Maria from afar, both waiting for the other to make a move. I should have been more careful and taken extra steps to ensure the Sight Stealer doesn't die, thus allowing us to capture and contain and research it, but Maria's a sharpshooter. What can you do about it? Later in the night, a whole friggin' pack of man-hunting platypi invade us, so I'll simply keep everybody inside for the time being. Oh, also to celebrate this turning of events, I increased the difficulty of Randy Random to his highest difficulty, Losing is Fun, I believe it's called, as a sort of celebration of the weirdness that has now entered our world. I made this change just before I started recording. That's my bad, I thought I was recording already. I decided to use our effort in killing these platypi into more internal affairs, from finishing our bridge building projects to making a proper fence enclosure for our farm animals. In the early hours of day 84, a band of cultist hate chanters arrive at our territory. These cultists intended on gathering somewhere far away to produce a strange eldritch chant that could negatively impact our colony, but this time they appear right next to our monolith. I was going to stand back and watch what these cultists do until one of them lassos our cat Cajun and kills her on the spot. During the attack, I have Maria and Hay House capture as many of the cultists as we can. One arm be damned, I'm starting to think the Haymaker was named after Hay House. Finally, as 8 a.m. rolls around and the rest of our colony begins to wake, Maria and Hay House have successfully captured 3 of the cultists for study. Luckily, the cultists that attacked us wielded several tools as weapons, from hammers to cleaving, butchering knives, which all provide bonuses to their respective works. So I'll have our cooks like Royo take the cleaver, and our builders like Hay House take the hammer. To fix our food shortage, I sent Scorpion and Boa to raid another hostile farming outpost. I decided to send Scorpion alone, mainly because Hay House has food poisoning, and the ladies just need to stay here and continue to defend the settlement. I decided to send Scorpion alone this time, just to have more defenders at our base, since all this weird stuff keeps happening. Little did Scorpion and I know at the time that this day would be the final day before catastrophe. In the morning of day 87, the mechanoids arrive. I don't want to spend too much time explaining what each of these mechanoid classes are, so understand this. Some are ranged, some are melee, some have lasers, others have flamethrowers or needle guns. We do have the firepower to put up somewhat of a fight in close range, but that's the issue here. We're confined to close range. Just so I can put my full attention to this, I have Scorpion set up an encampment for the time being. He won't go anywhere, he'll just passively heal and keep himself fed and rested. With this in mind, as the mechanoids prepare for their attack, everybody here is leaving to meet Scorpion at said encampment. Say goodbye to Lake Mountain. Well, that's what I hoped, at least. Unfortunately, we have less time than I thought, and the mechanoids begin their siege while the caravan is forming. And they close the gap quickly. We have to stand and fight. The first engagement is devastating, as one of the mechanoids sets Maria on fire and scorches Hay House, both of them being our greatest shots, Maria being our best shot of all. For whatever reason, Maria's dumb AI makes her run indoors while it's raining, despite her being on fire. Luckily, everyone is able to reach Maria before our perimeter wall is breached. Royo takes Maria's Glimmerold medicine and uses it on a now unconscious Maria. The pain shock got to her. Meanwhile, Cherry and a mildly burnt Hay House distract the mechanoids by maintaining fire. Royo takes the old trusty chain shotgun that Maria had to defend herself. Then she rushes back inside. Good thing we got away, because the slower bulk of the mechanoid force has just finished brutalizing our prisoners. At this point, I'm starting to lose hope. Without Maria, their best shooter, Lake Mountain might as well be lost, and there's certainly nothing Scorpion could do in a direct engagement. For now, I have Scorpion remain encamped, waiting for a potential time to return and perhaps help out. Okay, this next move, you can roast me for. My primitive monkey brain saw all three of these mechanoids bundled up and was like, ah, hell yeah, let's throw fire at him. And it misses anyway. As Royo drags Maria to safety, Cherry keeps firing on the breaching mechanoids while Hay House, like an absolute Chad, is beating them down and holding them back with his heavy SMG in melee, and like he is just laying them out. Again, one arm be damned. I try to kill the Centurion that Hay House knocked out, but that kind of firepower is doing virtually nothing to damage it. Meanwhile, the other mechanoids start destroying our new home. Hay House, after sustaining burns, needles, and bullets, has only 6 hours left to live. As our colonists fall back, one of the sniper mechanoids known as a Lancer begins firing on them. Cherry catches a bullet in the gut, and Hay House's lung collapses from being shot, and he dies a hero and a legend. Soon after, Cherry meets the same fate. That Lancer just straight up pulled a double kill on us. It's only Royo and a crippled Maria now. Royo will keep making as much distance as possible from the invading mechanoids. Despite this, the Scorcher seemingly returns to finish the job with that laser it has. I bait it into following us close enough to meet some real firepower. Then, like an absolute boss, Royo casts herself into the lake and makes her stand against all of the approaching mechanoids, Maria crawling away all the while. With only 13 hours of life left within her, Royo marches right up to the pikemen firing at her since they're virtually helpless in close range. Amazing. Simply amazing. At this point, both Maria and Royo are starving. The remaining mechanoids are essentially guarding the only way in and out of the valley. One of them, though slowly, continues their approach towards Royo and Maria. Neither of them have any food left, and the only berry bush within immediate reach fails as a botched harvest. The starvation continues, and our dear pig Cassidy is the only source of food in reach. Unfortunately, this move gets Royo spotted by a legionary mechanoid. We can either sit here and let it kill our starving Royo and Maria, or she can make an attempt to close the gap between the two. Unfortunately, the first shot the legionary gets on Royo is a shot straight to the head. She collapses, unconscious and bleeding out soon after. Then, something happens that I'm admittedly not too happy about. Before we permanently lose Lake Mountain forever, the Man in Black event occurs, meaning a wild man or a Man in Black enters your colony to give it one final chance before having to call it GG's. I'm gonna be real, I hate this event in particular, and I should have disabled it in hindsight. While I appreciate the kind gesture of the game throwing Lake Mountain a favor after completely wrecking it, the Man in Black event, to me, is just a really contrived cop-out. Like, the only reason this colonist exists is because of a fixed event that's guaranteed to occur. Just straight up Deus Ex Machina. So, all that to say, and you can hate me for this, I'm basically pretending this dude isn't even here. I don't want your mercy, Randy Random. I didn't hear no bail. We'll just give this guy a gun and let him go crazy with it. Now, there is one thing that this new colonist presence provides, and that's a chance for me to sit back and remember my honor. Maria saved Scorpion's life. It's time for Scorpion to pay back the favor. They are in love, after all. Unfortunately, though Scorpion does make it back to the colony, he doesn't reach Royo in time. Actually, by the time I click on her, she only had seconds left to live. As Scorpion brings Maria to safety, who's vomited all of her food from food poisoning and starving out, the incident that occurs next, I can only describe it as poetry. A large ship crash event occurs. First comes the reactor.
Who spends
Oh,
almost its entire runtime
no.
going over the events of Joker 1.
It's landing here?
Yeah, analysis of Joker 2 would be...
Oh, no! Scorpion drags his lover to our former prison and monolith room, which is just outside the radiation zone. We have no food anywhere near, aside from some fertilized desert ave eggs. Basically just big old bird eggs. Sorry, Maria, looks like you're not done, barely surviving by being force-fed raw food. Meanwhile, our forced plot device is boiling to death from radiation. I did not do this on purpose, I swear, I just wasn't paying attention. Alright, you know what? I'll save White. I'm not letting him die like this. The next couple hours involve Scorpion healing all of Maria's burns, both eating raw eggs to stave off the hunger pains, and watching Lake Mountain disappear under piles of destruction. While Scorpion gathers berries and mushrooms to eat, Maria finally regains her ability to walk. As the two rest outside of their lost home, our old friends the Sacrilege Hunters return, and they're wandering right into our territory, which is now a radioactive sinkhole. Scorpion and Maria will take some time to forage for some food, and the two brace themselves to seek new lands beyond the Lake Mountain. Their destination? Why, the site of the Mechanitor corpse that we were made aware of at the very beginning of this video. That, my friend, is the tale of the rise and fall of Lake Mountain.